Howdy, I'm Jolene, and today we're going to talk about common substitutes for Pilates props you might not have on hand. So let's get started. If you don't have access to gliders, those fun things that you use to slide across the floor, the easiest substitutes I've ever found are actually disposable paper plates or wearing a sock on half of your foot, depending on what kind of surface you're moving around on. I'll be honest, I don't even own gliders, I just have paper plates. It's the only reason I have them in my house. Therabands are super popular in Pilates land because they allow us to modify a lot of exercises. There's different tensions depending on the color. But if you don't have a TheraBand, what can you do? Well, if there happens to be an old pair of pantyhose or maybe a set of leggings that you're no longer attached to, this can be a wonderful substitute. Otherwise, you can always try using things like a yoga strap or a beach towel or a leather belt. There's a lot of alternatives out there. What can you use in place of a dowel or a weighted bar? I'll be honest, just about anything. I've used broom handles, I've used the things off of like the Swiffer handle, I've even used a toilet plunger handle in a time of need. So as long as you're able to hold your hands about shoulder distance apart, and it's not so narrow that when you go to grab it, it feels too small in your hands. That's really all you're looking for here. Okay, so how do you replace a magic circle? I'll be honest, I haven't found a good way to go about it yet. But depending on the exercise, you could use something like a small ball or a TheraBand, or maybe it's that pair of leggings that you gave up on in place of it. Also, if you're using it for head support, sometimes something like a small towel, for example, if you were using it behind your head during the 100, can be enough to give you the support you need. But yeah, if you're gonna buy one thing, I honestly think it should be a magic circle. Let's talk about the foot corrector / toe corrector. So if you don't have one of those fancy pieces of equipment, or maybe you don't have that slice wedge to help you work on the alignment of your feet, you have a couple options. So one of my favorites is to take some of the larger rubber bands that you find in the produce section and just like loop them around each other. You're then able to place them over each one of your feet. Obviously, these are a little loose from use, but if you find one of the tighter bands, like maybe what they put around asparagus, or you have a hairband that's not really been used a whole lot, this can work pretty nicely if wrapped around the big toes as some kind of toe corrector. Getting yourself a set of yoga blocks can be pretty cheap these days, but if you don't have a set, or if you're somewhere where you don't have access to them, another wonderful option can be finding 2 books of reasonably equal size. If you're in a hotel, maybe a Bible or 2 asked for from the front desk will at least give you something to work with that adds a little bit of lift. You can always stack 2 on top of each other if you come across 4 books that'll make this work for you. One of my favorite things about doing Pilates on the mat is not doing it on a yoga mat. It's just a hair too thin for me and my liking. But if you're not gonna cough up the dough or you're somewhere without one, you can always pad out a yoga mat with something like a bath towel or maybe a lightweight blanket underneath. Of course, if you're gonna stack bath towels, please be careful if you're on a slick surface. This is just asking for an accident to happen. Some people call it an overball, some people call it a small ball, but regardless, it's a small inflatable ball that you can use at home on the mat. And the cheapest option I found, if you don't have one, is to go to somewhere with a children's toy department and just find a small inflatable ball or something that can have some squish to it. The only hand weights I have are like weird and from forever ago. So instead, something like 2 canned beverages, or in my case, 2 cans of beans, might be all you need for a great arm workout.